And I come to you now in the name of the one who creates, redeems, and sustains. Amen. Please be seated. So for those of you who don't know, though Andrew let the cat out of the bag, my name is Cara, born and raised in St. Leonard. I graduated from Patuxent 25 years ago. For those who are keeping track, was the first graduating class. When I was there, I was pretty decent at field hockey. I went to Towson, where I quickly discovered I was not as decent at field hockey as I thought, which was a tad unfortunate. But I got to go to college, and when I was there, I discovered I was good at school. I was so good that I kept going to school, got a master's degree from a big school in Georgia, then a law degree from a very small and very expensive school in Georgia. I came back here. I clerked for Judge Warren Krug, practiced a little criminal defense with similar success to my field hockey. And then I headed off to seminary with the blessing of my church at the time, Chesapeake Church, which is its own very long and complicated story I'll be happy to share another time. But that complicated story resulted in ending up at VTS, where I met Andrew, when I was sent to learn how to be a proper Episcopalian, which predictably did not go well. But somehow, they still made me a priest, and that was 7 years ago. I've been off priesting in the world and came back to Calvert County late last summer, but right before my mom went into hospice. My mom loved Calvert County in a way that I haven't seen from many people about a place. She saw this place change so much, including being here and being in the Calvert County Public Schools when they integrated. I have watched this place go from tobacco farms to suburb. And I have watched what used to be the A&P in Prince Frederick become more things than I can actually even imagine. And for those of you who don't know, it was the Green Turtle and, I don't know, Shenanigans or something like that. Now I'm not actually sure. I can't keep up. And I remember when I suddenly noticed on a trip home to visit my mom that All Saints Church had put out a rainbow flag. And it was the first one I ever saw in Calvert County. Thank you all for that. And I am very much a product of this place. When someone asks me where I'm from, it's always Calvert County. This is the land that made me. And if you're sitting there thinking, that's nice, but maybe a little heavy-handed on the whole I'm a local thing, first, I want to say that I'm not a local, I'm a native, and there's a difference. And second, it's Good Shepherd Sunday. It's a day that if we are, in fact, Episcopalians, we have experienced several times. If we're church people at all, we have heard a sermon or two on Christ as the Good Shepherd. We have possibly also heard a sermon or 7 on the 23rd Psalm. Really deep church folks might even have heard one on Acts 4. And what I want to do, and what I want you all to trust me to do, is to show a couple of these readings in new ways, and to do so as an insider, even though you don't necessarily know me. That insider is important because it helps to develop trust, and trusting me is a lot easier if I have shown you why you can believe me at least a little bit. And so now that that's done, I would like to begin with a compliment. Because you all Saints Parish, were wise and discerning enough to call this incredible, joyful, and competent person as your rector. You can leave if you need to, it's okay. Andrew is a person who can lead you through any journey. He can lead you beside the still waters and through the valley of the shadow of death. But Andrew, my dear church, is what I call a very good priest. And a very good priest has a quirk that sometimes can make a congregation absolutely crazy. Because a good priest will help their people through anything, through any storm, any celebration, anything. And a very good priest, A very good priest will also lead you through anything, but a very good priest will not tell you, the congregation, where you all should go. Instead, the very good priest will vision and walk alongside, trusting the community to set their own direction. And it is, I will say from experience, very difficult to let a community set their own direction. It is actually a lot easier to tell folks where you're going. It seems like a priest is doing more when they set the direction of a congregation, but actually that's not true. At least it's not true in the sense of what's healthiest for both the congregation and the priest. Priests are often referred to as the shepherds of their people. And in some ways we are, but in some ways we really aren't. And let me explain. We have the Good Shepherd metaphor today, and while shepherding sheep was a very pertinent example 2,000 years ago, realistically, there are not a ton of sheep farmers in this room today. Is anyone a sheep farmer? Is anyone capable of explaining after the service the different worries about pasturing sheep or shearing sheep or just like general shepherding? Okay. So I think in this modern world, instead of sheep and shepherds, I think a better metaphor might actually be a parenting metaphor. And the ideal parenting image I have is of someone who teaches and equips their children on how to make good choices. And this means there will be bad choices made. But learning is possible from those choices, and invitations to learn and do better in a way that encourages and lifts up, rather than inadvertently shows a good behavior to be bad. Right? So let's say you have a child who from an early age loves art. They will draw and color on anything and everything you give them, and often seek approval from their grown-up on what they have drawn. The job of being the grown-up of this little creative human is to encourage that behavior. Heap praise on the creativity, show that you can see that their art is developing, and not lose your cool when the child gets really enthusiastic, needs a bigger canvas, and draws on the wall. Now, a lot of traditional parenting methods might say that the child needs to be punished, reprimanded, in order to learn not to do this again. Punishment as a learning tool, which is an effective tool, right? You will learn you will only draw on what is appropriate. You must understand what is appropriate. Parent determines that. It is similar to me to trusting the shepherd metaphor. But the child genuinely might not have known not to draw on the wall yet. Brains aren't fully developed. They get caught up in something and a mistake happens. The child is now seeking approval for their art. And by punishing them for their creation, you might inadvertently crush this desire to create right out of them. Make a child fearful to create. Instead, the parent might consider offering praise and then suggesting that while it's awesome what the tiny human made, a better place might be on a predetermined spot, like a desk on paper. The truly impressive parent might even hang a frame around the art rather than immediately painting over it, showing that the child has really done something beautiful, even if it's not in an ideal location. This location would be honored. The child sees that they've done something great, can learn from it. I am not a truly ideal parent. I'm not gonna. I think of Jesus as the parent who frames his child's art. And I think that this metaphor for God is one that I can really get on board with. It's one that also works for a priest leading a congregation. So let's say you're engaging in your upcoming visioning process. There are no bad ideas, except for the ones that maybe aren't expressed. And the ideas that are maybe a bit misguided or in the wrong place entirely can be lovingly redirected to a more appropriate location. It can be really hard to rethink, re-envision, reimagine things like texts and stories that we've heard and read dozens, if not hundreds of times. God is the good shepherd. Jesus is the good shepherd. Jesus as the lamb. These are the stories that it's really important, I think, to take a fresh look at. Because what is recorded in the Bible, these stories weren't written for us. The silence. Maryland was not a thing 2,000 years ago. Jesus did not know there was a North America. Actually, nobody in Palestine knew there was a North America. If Jesus were to suddenly apparate into the back of this room, he would look around and be horribly confused by all of it. And that is inside of a building that was built in like 1692. Windows did not start appearing in the Roman world until around 100 CE. Which is roughly 70 years after Jesus died. Windows. This room is confusing. And it's okay. Honestly, I think it's required of people of faith to take a look at ourselves and our faith every now and then and ask if something still makes sense. Or maybe it's time to really focus on the intent of a text or a belief to find out a way to make that intent work better in the world that we're in. So for example, I wasn't here, but I bet there was at least a little bit of conversation that preceded putting that rainbow flag out front for the first time. And the intent that you all showed in that was that Jesus loves and welcomes and accepts everyone, especially the marginalized. And well done. You showed me that. And I had never been told that I was acceptable at church, which was right down the street. That flag told me I would be welcomed here. That flag told me he would be welcomed here. And I know for myself these days, it is a lot easier to be welcoming and accepting to the folks who have been ostracized rather than the folks who do the ostracizing. What is an ongoing, growing edge for me is to remember that Jesus loves all of us. Exactly the same, just like a really good parent. Just like the good shepherd who loves all of his sheep, even the ones who find a way to wander off and leave you completely scratching your head, wondering how they got so far over there, across a canyon with a river in the middle, up a tree that is dangling precariously off of a cliff. But it's still your sheep. And you love your sheep. And we, as the people of God, are called to love one another in exactly the same way. It is probably the closest to doing the work of God that we can do as humans, when we find a way to love someone who doesn't love us. And I, as a native of Calvert County, I know that this place is one that in its DNA understands the good of the whole of the community is more important than the individual. We step up for one another. Historically, we find a way to be in relationship with one another and to reconcile. And I know that it is hard to do that in these modern times, but it is what God calls us to do. The history of Calvert County, the history of All Saints Parish have at their core a plumb line of the importance of hard work, dedication, and relationship. So friends, be creative. Be open, but most importantly, be kind. Trust your very good priest to lead you, not where he thinks you should go, but where you all discover together that you should go. As you all consider and vision the future of All Saints, let the intention of Jesus as the good parent lead the way. Feel emboldened and supported and creative so that you can take risks, make mistakes, and know that the corrections will be gentle. And please, take with you as a guiding principle my favorite teaching from the 23rd Psalm, which is that in order to get out of the valley of the shadow of death, in order to get to the still waters and green pastures, You have to hike through a pretty complicated landscape that you can't necessarily see. The still waters don't come to you. You have to do the work to get there. And don't be afraid of the work of faith, because it is along that path that you will truly meet Jesus. Amen.